Welcome to Duke Devil 95. My name is Brad Burnett, and today I'm discussing the third episode of Picard Season 3, titled 17 Seconds. This episode picks up right where we left off. The Titan is running from the Shrike, trying to escape it in the nebula. We then flash back to a scene at Guinan's bar where Picard and Riker are sharing a drink celebrating the birth of Riker's son Thaddeus. Riker says the birth was difficult. He got a call to go to sickbay from the bridge. It only took him 17 seconds, but he said it was the longest 17 seconds of his life because he didn't know what was going to happen to his son. Back in the present day, the Titan goes deeper into the nebula and it's being hit by energy surges, which have both electrical and biological signatures. Picard and Riker go to sickbay where Beverly and Jack are helping the injured crew, and this is where Picard and Beverly finally talk about everything. Their on and off relationship and the true parentage of Jack. Beverly says that she became pregnant on their last night together. She wanted to tell Picard about Jack, but didn't because something always came up, whether it's Picard being called to a new mission, being kidnapped, or attacked by assassins. It was always something. And she said that Picard told her he never wanted to have a family. Picard says that is all unfair, and things would have been different if she had simply told him the truth. Beverly said Picard always had a target on his back, and she didn't want Jack to have that target as well. Picard retorts it was simply wrong for her to make that choice for him. Then Beverly explains to Picard that she and Jack had been on the run from virtually everybody, Starfleet, Klingons, Fenris Rangers, but she did not know who Vadic was. She said that the Shrike isn't just a bounty hunter ship, it's a warship that is backed by Picard-sized enemies. Picard and Riker then go to the bridge. On the way, Riker urges Picard to speak to Jack because there may be a time where he won't be able to, and that calls back to the death of Riker's son. They get to the bridge, and that's when the Shrike is really attacked. The bridge is rocked with explosions, and Captain Shaw is thrown through the air. He hits his head on the ground and is badly injured, blood pouring from his head, and he transfers command to Riker right before he's taken to sickbay. Picard takes the first officer position, and together they fend off the Shrike for the moment. Riker thanks Picard, and Picard says, "Call me number one." Now we go to Metalis Prime, where, of course, my favorite, recovering Starfleet addict, Rafi is. She's coming down from the high from the drugs she took, trying to get information from the Ferengi Sneed in the last episode. She wakes up and sees Worf practicing with his blade, doing some drills. She tries to attack Worf, but he quickly disarms her and introduces himself. He says, "I am Worf, son of Moog, House of Martok, son of Sergei, House of Rozhenko, bane to the Duras family, slayer of Gowron. I have made some chamomile tea. Do you take sugar?" At this point, Rafi realizes that Worf is in fact her handler, and he says that his interests align with Starfleet on this mission. He's figured out the next lead is a human named Titus Ricca, and that he was involved in the theft of the weapons from Daystrom Institute. He tells Rafi that she's going to help him track down Ricca and find out who else is involved and stop whatever their plan is. Back on the Titan, Picard and Riker are debating strategies of how to deal with the Shrike. Picard thinks they should attack, but Riker doesn't want to risk an engagement with such a powerful ship. In sickbay, Beverly and Jack are helping Shaw, who's badly injured, the injury to his head. Shaw just looks at Jack and says, "How does the Shrike keep tracking them? How do they keep finding us?" And as Jack is there helping Shaw, he looks to the ground and sees some blood on the floor. And that's when he gets an idea of what could be happening. On the bridge, the Titan is about to get out of the nebula now. They're about to get away and go to warp. And that's when the Shrike fires the portal weapon, the same weapon that was used to destroy the Starfleet recruitment center on Metalis Prime. The portal opens up in front of the Titan, and rather than escaping the nebula, it's directed back into the nebula. This happens a couple times before Riker finally realizes we just got to keep trying to escape from them and goes back into the nebula. So at this point, Jack has gone to 7 of 9 for help because he hopes that maybe she knows some tricks from being a Fenris Ranger that could help him figure out what's going on. He says, "I think the Titan is leaving breadcrumbs. Blood in the water," is what he says. 7 thinks there could be a material that insulates the warp core called deuterium. This material is poisonous to humans when it's in a gas form, and it can be detected by a mass spectrometer, which is useful in the nebula because sensors don't work, but the mass spectrometer would. So they think that's how the Shrike is tracking the Titan. They go off to investigate. They put on some gas masks to avoid the effects of the gas and find the deuterium leak. It looks like sabotage. Seven goes to stop the leak, and Jack tries to stop the leak at his location. He is suddenly attacked by an ensign who appears to be unaffected by the gas. He's not wearing a mask. The ensign rips off Jack's mask and throws him across the room. Jack then hits the ensign in the face, and that's when the ensign's face shifts and warps. The gas then overcomes Jack. He collapses to the floor, and the ensign leaves. Back on the Talos Prime, Rafi and Worf have tracked down and captured Riker. They interrogate him good cop, bad cop style. Riker looks like he's suffering from drug withdrawals, so Rafi tries to tempt him with some drugs. Riker admits that he and other enemies of the Federation broke into Daystrom to steal the portal weapon, but that theft was just a ruse to distract from their real purpose. Rafi then realizes that Riker isn't suffering from withdrawal symptoms at all. That's when Worf asks Riker, "How long have you been away from the Great Link?" What does that mean? Riker is a changeling. Riker says the Foundation will fall, and then he reverts to his liquid form. Before he can escape, Worf vaporizes him with a phaser. Worf tells Rafi about the Founders and the changelings. He says a trusted friend, a man of honor, warned him about a radical group of changelings and that they have a plan to eliminate Starfleet and destroy the Federation. He tells Rafi that they're partners now and they're going to figure out what all is going on, who is behind it, and put a stop to it. Back on the Titan, Jack is lying on the floor, overcome by the gases, and he begins to hallucinate. He sees images of tree branches. He sees 7 of 9 saying connect the branches, and then he sees a doorway. In reality, 7 comes in, tries to wake Jack up, realizes he's badly injured, and rushes him down to sickbay. Picard is told what's going on, and he goes down to sickbay as well. We then get a scene where Picard is alone in the turbolift, and it's a callback to the 17 seconds Riker referred to during the birth of his son. You can see that Jean-Luc Picard is realizing that he may be losing his son at this time, and it's weighing on him greatly. He gets to sickbay. Beverly works very hard and is able to save Jack's life, who looks up and tells everybody that there's a saboteur on board and it's a changeling. It turns out the changeling has already set a bomb, which goes off and disables the Titan's warp drive. Back on the bridge, Picard tells Riker they have no choice but to fight. The Titan then fires torpedoes at the Shrike, but the Shrike uses the portal weapon to redirect those torpedoes back at the Titan. The torpedoes explode against the hull. The Titan starts losing power and drops into the gravity well at the heart of the nebula. Riker looks at Picard and says, "Remove yourself from the bridge. You've just killed us all." Picard walks away, and the show ends as the Titan plunges into the gravity well. So, unlike my last review where I said I thought the second episode wasn't as good as the first, this episode for me hit on all marks. There was great tension, great pacing, great acting. It was a smartly written script. There's a lot of good in this one, but there's a couple things that really bothered me. One thing is the de-aging, obviously, of Picard and Riker when they're having a drink at the bar. It's bad. Flat out, it's bad. Picard's face just looks like clay. Riker looks oddly shaped. It looks like bad, video game graphics. De-aging tech is tough. I don't think Star Trek Season 3 here had enough of a budget to really afford to do the effect properly. So that was distracting, as well as the fact that the voices didn't change. You could still hear 80-plus-year-old Patrick Stewart speaking through what's supposed to be the 60-year-old Patrick Stewart body. Again, it's distracting. The scene is necessary, but it doesn't look great. The other thing I don't like is that when Worf tells Rafi that they're now partners, she says, cool. One of the things that's always stuck out to me with Star Trek is that the language is very specific. They don't talk the way the 20th and 21st century people do. It's the 24th, 25th century. If you go back to Star Trek 4, Voyage Home, Spock talks about more colorful metaphors, swearing and cursing. It wasn't that common in Star Trek. It is in the new Trek, the Kurtzman Trek. I don't like it. I don't like when the language of today is introduced into the Star Trek universe. What are the good things in the show? There are so many good things. Let's start first. Picard and Beverly. That was a great scene between the two. Neither of them, nothing what they said was wrong. We learned a lot about that missing time. We learned a lot about the relationship, which we'd never seen before. And we learned how Picard was viewed throughout the galaxy and how that affected Beverly's decisions. Like I said, both of their arguments are correct. Neither is wrong. We get a great understanding of each of their perspectives and feelings. It's just a well-done scene. Jack. I'm warming up more to him a little bit. I still think he's being shown as having too much skill and experience for someone his age. Maybe Beverly just has sons that are very smart and experienced. But I think when they team him up with Seven in this episode, that helps. Like I say, I did not see a lot of Picard season 1. From what I did see, I didn't like any of the new characters. It just did not fit in the Star Trek universe for me. But when you pair a new character with an established Star Trek character like they've done here, that may help make the character more recognizable in the Star Trek universe. At least that's the sense I was getting. The thing with the hallucination, the vision that Jack has is interesting because it suggests there's more to Jack than simply just being Picard and Beverly's son. Picard and Riker, this relationship continues to be fantastic. We really see Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes just hitting the mark so well with each other that the chemistry's back again. They play off each other so well. But now we see a different dynamic than we did in the original TNG show. Riker, of course, was always a subordinate to Picard. He was the executive officer. But now, Riker's in command of the ship, Captain Riker. And even though Picard outranks him, Picard takes on the role of executive officer. The way each had a strategy to deal with Vadic is interesting because I did not think that Picard would be the one promoting the attack plan. He's normally more diplomatic. I don't know if it's the fact that his son is on board, that he wants to try to protect him. Perhaps that is what's doing it. Riker, of course, is mainly concerned with protecting the ship the way a captain should, protecting the lives of his crew. You can see the tension build between these two as they argue about the strategy. And it's really interesting because at one point, when he throws Picard off the bridge, you see Riker just disgusted, angry at everything that's happened. And you're wondering if this tension between Picard and Riker is going to hurt their friendship. And it's just continued. They just work great together. Really enjoying that part of it. Lastly, I want to talk about Worf. How great is it to have Worf back? I'm really liking this warrior monk vibe he's given off. And Michael Dorn just looks great. He's a proper Klingon again, the way Klingons should look. When he talks, you hear the same timbre of his voice we heard 20 years ago, 30 years ago now on DS9 and TNG. He has the same deadpan statements that end up being unintentionally funny. He just knows the role so well that he easily fell back into it. And speaking of DS9, what do you do on a Star Trek show when you want to make your show better? You bring in Worf. You worked with DS9. We do get some great DS9 callbacks. The Dominion War, the reference to Odo, played by the late Rene Auberjonois. And I think this pairing of Worf and Rafi is going to help the Rafi character. Same thing the way I kind of got that vibe with Seven and Jack. Again, I don't like Rafi. Everyone's favorite strung out, recovering drug addict from Starfleet. I don't think it's a good character. Bottom line, she's ridiculous in the Star Trek universe. It's ridiculous for her to be a Starfleet officer. Her lines, her delivery, many times in this episode, again, come off ridiculous. But I think having Worf with her will help. Having such an established, strong character will at least make Rafi more tolerable. So overall, this was a great episode. I loved it. They're continuing to show that Terry Matalas running this show on his own was the smartest thing to do. And bringing in the old TNG cast, smartest thing to do. Until next time, questions, comments, witticisms down below. Click all the good like buttons on YouTube, and I'll see you later.